Peoplework is proud to present Strategic Shift, a podcast where we explore the future of work. I'm Dion McIntosh, your host, and each week I'll sit down with the bold thinkers, the visionaries, and the leaders who are reimagining the systems that shape our lives. If you're someone that doesn't want to become obsolete, or you want to make sure your company doesn't get left behind, stick around. I got you. Jude, welcome to Strategic Shift Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dion.
I'm excited to have you. I want to dive into all of the things you're doing. You have such a unique perspective because you've been in the HR business for a very long time. You've seen the transitions and the changes and the challenges come and go, and you've kind of been on the front lines of it all. And I'd love to just get into how you started, like what got you into the HR pathway, and then what led you to the university today.
Excellent. Happy to share some background. So my first step into HR was back in 1998, and I had originally started my career in the hospitality industry in operations, and I worked for Marriott International for over 17 years and transitioned to as a former vice president of human resources for Atrium Hospitality, the sixth largest hospitality management company in the United States. And most recently, just had an opportunity to some self-reflection, and it was, I loved the lifestyle. It was a busy lifestyle. I worked with some great people, some smart people, but I really needed to make a change. I was at a point in my life where my parents are elderly. I needed to take care of them. I couldn't be on the road 3 weeks out of the month. And this position with Thomas More, the head of human resources for Thomas More University, really spoke to me. I happened to see the job opening, and I kind of pointed my finger at the computer, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't clear to me until I actually saw it and the scope, and I said, I can do that, and I can do that well. So it was August of 2024. I reached out to them, they reached out to me, and that is why I'm sitting here today.
Nice. So it was a mission alignment. Now it's a purpose and passion driven, and it's in the industry you know. I would imagine it's very different.
It is very different. I went from 83 locations across 29 states in 4 different time zones to now I am in the state of Kentucky. Thomas More University is in Crestview Hills. It's a beautiful area. We're a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio. I have 3 locations that I oversee. We recently experienced 2 acquisitions here in the summer since the end of the academic year, but I have the opportunity to help support Covington Latin School in Covington, Kentucky, which is a premier private independent school here in the Diocese of Covington. And also we've recently acquired Northern Kentucky Racquet Club. So it's on our campus. The management company was moving out. We had owned the land. It was on a land lease, and I've had the opportunity to support them now for the last couple of weeks and learning that business as well. Some tricky and some caveat situations that have been presented, but we're working through them one at a time. We're just excited to have we're just a growing family and a growing community, and excited to be a part of it.
What would you say, what's the main mission alignment for you that got you to point to the screen and say, that's the one I want, that's where I want to be? Like, what was it that really did that?
What was it that really did that? I was motivated because, again, I was at a turning point in my life, and I was really tired of making money for the man. The 12-hour days and working the Saturdays, and if I'm lucky, I get a half a Sunday off. And you come in on Monday, and you're still 100 emails behind that have been unread, and I just wasn't getting satisfaction from that anymore. My alignment is just the core values of Thomas More University. We have termed it Thomas More Rise, Respect, Integrity, Service, and Excellence. Our mission, we are mission driven, in that we are here to support the entire community, not just our students, but our faculty and staff as well, with their personal, professional, and spiritual health. Just growth, so that Thomas More Rise is kind of a tendre, a play on words. And we teach using the Catholic intellectual tradition. And it is high integrity. It is well respected and something that just drives us every day. We're here for the students and watching them grow and develop on the three aspects that are most important to us, and doing so just with the constant reinforcement with the literature, uh, the art, the literature, the theater, and what we have the university offers. It's just amazing to watch. It's awe-inspiring.
That's beautiful. It's interesting. I've spoken with a number of leaders in the HR space and folks at universities as well. And it seems to be the general sentiment that student outcomes is a big focus for them. Like what happens after they leave the campus when they're done, they've completed their degree or their certification, whatever it is they're going for. A lot of the folks I spoke with is their success metric is now what happens. Do we get them? Are they able to get placement? Are they able to go out and find a career path and go that direction? And I've heard some interesting data points that there's a lot of folks that end up going into a career path that had nothing to do with what they studied or what they got their degree in. How do you experience that from where you're at right now at Thomas? Like, are you seeing similar outcomes? Are you seeing folks being able to find placements? Or is it still pretty rough out there when people leave? I'm just curious what you see.
Well, I will not lie or paint a rosy picture. I know it's rough out there and we can't take a job offer for granted. I think sometimes that happens as well. We go in with a student may attend a degree or achieve a degree and they had these ideas of what that might look like after they graduate. But then as you face it, they have their companies or organizations have these open positions. And I know sitting in the HR seat, you have one open position, you post a position on Friday, you have 100 applications by Monday.
Hmm.
And so, and that's something that I've counseled my own children is don't take a job offer for granted. So I think that's something that happens. Get your foot in the door with a good company, using the qualifications and the experience or lack of experience that you might have just coming out of college. You got, the experience plus your degree equals your job, and you might be missing a little bit of one or the other. But once you get your foot in the door with a good company, then you have an opportunity to see what's out there and grow and develop within the organization, the institution that you decided to join. That was the way I was thinking about it. Now, granted, this is going, back 30 or 40 years, but I went, my undergraduate degree was in hospitality management. I thought it was going to be a food and beverage director. That's what I wanted. I love the catering piece of it and the creativity and have some culinary skills that I practice in my free time. It's more of a hobby for me than it is that I wanted to make it a career. But starting in operations and then being exposed to HR, I knew I had my foot in the door with a great company with Marriott International, and any company of worth and value is going to give you the opportunity to explore the possibility in your own competencies and your own strengths and see where you might find a fit. And I had the opportunity to do that. I was working operations for front desk and restaurant at a Courtyard by Marriott. And the organizational structure at the time was a general manager and the AGM, and they were delegating everything to me that they didn't want to do. So, but what were those things? It was payroll and onboarding and orientation and training and recruitment. I was like, this is a lot of fun. So how do I take the one aspect of my job that I love the most and do it full time? So when I counsel or I work through early career, or even our students here at Thomas More University, that, hey, Jude, I have an interest in HR. How do I get how do I start? And anyway, I relate back to that story and say, be willing to do just about anything, get your feet wet, explore it, see what you like to do. And then that way you'll be able to advocate for yourself and sell your skills so that it becomes obvious that you have the enthusiasm and the desire to be the best candidate. They'll get you there.
I love that. I love that perspective. You're just making me think differently right now as we talk about this, that maybe we just need to shift how we think about this, because there's this idea like, oh, I have a degree in X, and so I'm supposed to get a job that looks just like this. And so you put yourself in this box rather than I'm looking for opportunities to get myself in the door. And then I might be able to explore other pathways that are relevant to what I really love or what I'm really great at as you're inside the organization. And so That's a really good point for folks to consider. Like, where can I get in as a starting place to get going? I like that a lot.
Or where can I develop the transferable skills?
Very good. I like that. What what are you seeing as far as like technology, like how tech, especially the AI, how is that affecting how you guys teach and how you prep people for what's coming?
Oh my goodness, just within the last since the pandemic, it has been amazing, and the development of AI 2022, it's really difficult to keep up.
Mm,
I know that the university is really focused on content development and ensuring that we stay relevant, and whether you're in higher education or the private sector, I'm sure this is a big challenge that organizations are having is I've been speaking with or meeting with a lot of different solutions and startups that are developing different technologies. And it's not necessarily that I think I'm in the market, but I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's out there and what is out there that I'd be able to apply to my day to day to make it more efficient within my department and my team. But this is knowledge that young career students need to take to go out. Like if there's a software development or a program that they're not familiar with, how do what can we do? What kind of faculty development is necessary so that those that have been teaching for a while, and maybe it's been a few years since they've been in private sector or been exposed to some of the challenges that are out there, how do we keep our content relevant so that our students are knowledgeable when they do take that first step out of graduation, whether it be their undergrad or their graduate. But something that we're constantly researching. We have, library staff and content and work very directly with our faculty to ensure that the content that we have is most relevant.
that's fantastic. You're so you're out there actively paying attention to what's changing in real time and then adjusting and pivoting. It's it gives you and Thomas University a huge advantage because there's some organizations who just refuse to adopt and they kind of say, nope, this is we believe that this is where it is and it's not. We're not going to play the changing tech game and we don't necessarily believe in AI and I feel like that's going to put their students at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
Yeah.
that. I mean, there are going to be differentiators, though, that those that know AI know how to use it, know what prompts to use, and those that
Yes.
don't. And those
Yes.
on the one side are going to have the advantage.
What are some of the things that that you guys are teaching right now and preparing students for? Like, what sort of pathways are you setting folks up for?
I know that they're doing a lot of work in the MIS and information technology space. Our College of Business, that enrollment has grown exponentially since its inception, and the university has invested a lot of money in that particular college, and that is a lot of fun to watch. The I know that they're taking a look, like we have investment in, again, content design and content development and designated individuals that's what they do is they're on the search and this and the prowl for content to not only share with our students but also to do lunch and learns. We have library talks that invite subject matter experts or PhDs that hey, this is one specific topic that we'd like to share with the rest of the faculty and staff because they might be able to have some takeaways within their own disciplines. And that is a professional development opportunity that I'm really pleased to see in the university. I think that it's a mindset of constant innovation and constant change that that benefits. And as it's identified, granted, we do have limited resources, but we understand what attracts the students, what makes our professors and our staff the most qualified, and that's where our resources will be allocated to.
That makes sense. What are some of like the current challenges from an HR perspective that you're facing that you're tackling, and what are you doing to kind of take that on to try to find solutions?
Um, Well, under the context of technology, we ourselves we're innovating our HCM system. I mean, if I'm going to become more efficient, if we're limited budget in regards to staffing, and all right, so what is just identifying every keystroke, and how can we minimize our keystrokes and the use of paper, and how do we digitize, and how do we use AI, and how can it be more intuitive? So I would say that's, at least within my discipline and in my seat amongst my own team, that's my number one right now, is just we're upgrading our HCM over the summer before fall starts, implementation date of August 1st. Um, I also what we're working with is the employee experience. And this goes back to the topic that you and I, as we just started this conversation, is the candidate and the employee experience, and how to integrate and upgrade that communication. Um, from an you submit a application or a resume, is somebody, what is acknowledging the fact that the organization received it, um, and what does that look like? And did we put our mission and our core values, like, are we articulating it from the very first conversation or the very first communication that they receive from us? Our mission and values are so fundamental to us, and we know that if our candidates, our faculty and staff, if they are not aligned with our mission, then it's not going to be a cultural fit. It's not going to be a fit within our organization. So we do try to ensure that it's communicated and weeded out, or we like to use the word prune, which is a biblical reflection, when we not only during our talent acquisition, but also our employee experience. Um,
What does that look like for you guys? So I know there's folks who are in the position of hiring and managing teams and onboarding and trying to get the right people on the bus, so to speak, and in the right seats. What do you do personally to make sure that you are getting the right people and that they're not getting stuck in the filter at the resume level before you even get a chance to meet them? Because I'm sure there's a lot of fantastic humans that would be great match for
yeah.
your values, but they get stopped because maybe on paper, technically, they don't match what a lot of the filtering systems look for. What do you guys do?
I can answer the question, and it starts with the AI committee. And what we did in the 24-25 academic year is we developed a AI policy, and we developed it for the faculty side and also for the staff side. The staff side is a bit more robust because we are advocates for AI. We're like, bring it on, and how can we make our jobs more efficient? But in that AI policy, we made a commitment not to use AI in the selection process.
Hmm.
So our ATS system, or our applicant tracking process, it's by date, and we review it 10 applications at a time if we get that many. Some of our open positions are so niche that if we only get 4 or 5 applications, we have we have an applicant pool that we're happy with. But to individually go in and review every resume, no, I don't want applications or submissions, especially for our hard to fill, like PhD positions or professor positions, to be filtered out because they didn't list a competency that ATS is looking for. I think that's detrimental to an organization. However, I do have, the department leaders, the HR team, those whoever's working the requisition. I am staffed well enough to do that. I know that there's organizations out there that receive thousands of resumes and can use AI through the filtering system, the filtering process, or the 1 through 10 scale, or whatever is out there that they prefer to use. But I feel very fortunate to be in a mid-sized organization with 530 employees, and we're able to review each candidate on a personal level.
Got it. What would you say to someone who's in your seat but in a larger organization that deals with that challenge of, hey, we get hundreds or thousands of submissions, and I feel like maybe they feel like they are filtering out some folks that really would be a perfect culture fit, but they just can't get to them all. What advice would you give that person to help kind of solve some of that? at that scale?
And this is where I'll go back to my former position and my former employer. And with Atrium Hospitality, we were trying to staff hotels as we were climbing out of the pandemic. And pre-pandemic, on a typical day, the organization would have 300 open positions. We were climbing out of the pandemic, and we had 1,300.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was acting as the director of talent acquisition for the organization, and it was just overwhelming. And what we did, or how I think we can combat that, and how we did combat it, is we built our team. We built the talent acquisition team. There were a half a dozen of us, but it was also divided by location. So each location would have somebody designated, whether that at the time, until we could put HR in place, whether it be the general manager or the HR leader, an area director of HR. Instead of looking at 1,300 open positions, they might have had 20 or 25 or 30 at the same time.
Mm,
Now that's still a lot, but to come in the morning and allocate 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day to review the applications that came in through the night before, I think that's how you combat some of that AI filtering. Again, just delegating and make sure that, not that we want to work in silos, but essentially that's what it was, so that we had a designated person reviewing the applications.
that's great. I love that advice. So just sort of segment it by location, maybe even by department to make it easier on the person that would normally have to take it all on. So that's great. What would you say on the employee side that you've seen gives folks a little bit of an edge to help them be seen more frequently? I speak with a lot of folks who say that it's really hard for them to find work and they just can't seem to ever get an interview, or they can't seem to get a call back, and I'm like, okay, I'm talking to experts on the front line, so I'm going to get some of this info for you guys. What can they do better?
My advice to somebody that's looking to take the next step in their career, whether it be within the organization where they currently work or in a different one, is in your current organization, understand what the biggest, baddest problem is, the biggest challenge that they're having, and then either contribute or find a way to fix it. That's
Mm,
how you build a resume, and that is how you get promoted. Um, the
that's
example
good.
I just gave with talent acquisition, I filled that role 1,300, and then when I left the role, we were down to about the high 800s. But I was able to put the structure in place. With Thomas More University, the biggest, baddest problem that I was presented with, a CEO could care less how organized my files are or how efficient the HCM is. That's my work-life balance. But what they do care about is the cost of healthcare benefits, the health and wellness, and that's what we tackled in 24, 25. I mean, I was on my second day of work, and I kid you not, I couldn't walk down the hallway and somebody said, "Hey, Jude, do something about these rising medical insurance costs." Well,
Mm,
not only from an employee perspective, because that's money out of pocket, but also from the employer perspective, because their employer contribution was rising. And again, a nonprofit Catholic university, we have a very finite budget. And just I'm really pleased with my broker. They were such a great partner. Um, and worked with a benefit committee of both faculty and staff. There were about 8 of us that got together regularly for about 3 months, and we were able to put a proposal on the table. Open enrollment was in May. Our fiscal year starts June 1st. And not only, and I was just so proud of the results. So I was I was so pleased when we were able to work together and collaborate and find a solution, or one that was a little bit easier to stomach than what we experienced the prior year. We reduced our, in one particular healthcare plan, we reduced our premiums for the family by $300 a month.
mm,
Uh,
that's
and
huge.
just through the entire strategy, the committee was able to save the university $120,000 year over year. And
Wow.
that's going to go on a resume.
That's fantastic. How do you do that? Like when I hear you speak, you're like a gold mine of information, and you've probably forgotten more about this space than most people know. You've done so many things. You know all these things about how to get there. How do you approach these problems? Like, what's your process or your thinking that maybe most folks in your position might miss or think differently, that you see kind of repeated over and over, that make it hard for them to solve these kind of challenges? How do you do it? What's your process?
I think I I think the ability to get things done, at least sitting in an HR seat, is building the relationships and recognizing that you're not the subject matter expert, is pulling in people or recognize people with those strengths, the knowledge, and not afraid to say, I need help. Um, how would you suggest, or what was tried in the past and what didn't work? And I stated it was a committee. It was a committee. They had the institutional knowledge, the history and the knowledge that I didn't have. Why did the medical premiums jump 10% between 2023 and 2024, and why, and what was the behavior, and what caused, such a jump? I mean, besides, the pandemic aside, and just trying to get an idea as I think just through relationships and building it and bringing in the subject matter experts, getting different ideas, looking at the environment, reading the articles, other ideas of where other companies have had the opportunity, have had some successes. I think networking helps with some of your peers at other organizations. Hey, did you have this problem? What worked for you? And then putting some of those ideas on paper. And I'm not saying shoot, ready, aim, but I'm saying just look at all the possibilities and looking at different actions that possibly you can adopt and see what works. And
Mm.
trust me, not everything's going to work. And there are going to be times when we just fall flat on our face. But um, but if you can hit, you know, 20%, that's going to be notable. People are going to remember the wins before they remember the failures.
For sure. Absolutely. I think that's good advice. What do you think is coming, like in the next couple years, from an HR perspective, that people in your seat or considering going down that career path should be aware of so they're ahead of it?
My main goal as a head of HR for Thomas More University, a private, independent Catholic university nonprofit, is I recognize that my salaries are not going to be as high as my competition. There are plenty of universities in the Cincinnati region that are federal and state funded. I have to compete against that. So for
Mm.
me to continue to look at different solutions, different offerings, whether it be mental health benefits or your pet insurance or crazy things like farm collectives, where you're sharing vegetables with everybody, that's how my faculty and staff are going to look at Thomas More University and say, you know what, this is a really cool place to work. And
Mm.
I think other employers can relate to that, because being competitive with salaries and wages is always going to be a challenge. Inflation's always going to be there, and your competition's always going to offer 25 cents more an hour than you are. And if you can build the culture where people want to come to work, and the benefit offerings are maybe a little bit non-traditional, but they're unique and they're special to the person that are receiving them, that's how we're going to be able to survive for the long term.
I think that's a fantastic answer, because it helps the little company as well, thinking like, how can I stay competitive if I want to attract, top talent? And they start thinking about, well, we're going to have to offer bigger salaries, and they start competing at a level they can't keep up with, as opposed to thinking, oh, why don't I just focus on our culture, like building a very clear culture, clear core values, and offering unique and special benefits that fit the particular person that we're trying to attract. And, like you said in the beginning, you left this high stakes, high pressure, huge, massive organization to work somewhere smaller that meant something to you, that was about passion and value alignment. And so they got clearly a top tier talent in you coming there, which means anyone, no matter what size their business, if there's a culture match and a core value match, you can find the right people as long as you don't lose sight of that. So I think that's a great answer. That's what I take from it when I think of the smaller folks that might be listening to you right now on how they can compete and still attract good people. I like that a lot. Yeah. So right now in your seat, there are countless folks trying to keep talent. And it's similar to like kind of what we just talked about, but what are some of the strategies that you use to make sure that you keep your culture consistent and keep people in seats so they don't leave you?
Well, being a nonprofit, again, salaries and wages and are a challenge. And I will admit to anybody within my organization, yeah, we lag behind a little bit. And I think
Hmm.
that's something that we can recognize. I find that I have two succinct populations at Thomas More University specifically. I have the early career that are probably newly graduated, whether it be with an undergrad or a graduate degree and a new MBA, trying to get that experience. I also have those that are later career. I have I have folks that have worked with us for 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. We have two 50-year
Wow.
anniversaries coming up because
Oh, that's amazing.
we're a community. Of course, we want to stay. And there is a little bit of gap I noticed within that mid-career, and which is okay. So for a new career person that comes in, I recognize that they're going to have different motivational goals. They have different financial needs. An early career person, they're concerned about the next car payment, or I'm in an apartment, I'd love to buy a house. And even during an interview process, we have this conversation. If you're just with me for 2 years, 24 months, I'm okay with that. That's a win because the first year that you're in the position, you're learning the position. The second year that you're in a position, you are knocking your metrics out of the ballpark because you figured it out your first year. So now you have the opportunity to prove yourself and you have and lead initiatives and get exposure to other disciplines to show what you can really do. And then your third year, that's the year that you're looking for another position, whether it be within the organization, if we have it to offer in our limited organizational chart, or you may be able to find it at another institution or another organization. And you know what thing I think even during the interview process, and I've had this conversation a couple of times, a handful of times just recently, is that's okay. And I think
Mm.
that's a change of mindset that we've had before. Oh, we want you to, how long if you hired for the position, how long will you stay with us? And some employers might be listening for that 10, 15. Oh, I want to be here for a career. And that gives me a little bit of pause. Now, if I can offer job expansion or job promotion, between year 2 and year 3 when you're at that 24, 36 months, but then yes, I do know that it's exponentially more likely that I'm going to be able to keep you for 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm.
And then in that 5, 6, 7 year rank, because you're 3 years off of what we just talked about, then we're going to have to reevaluate and what's your next step and what does that look like? Um, but if there's a little bit of turnover between that 23rd and 36 months, I think I can check the box and say, we did a good job with that. Um, those that
That's a
have been with
huge
us a
distinction.
little bit longer, yeah, those that have been with us a little bit longer, you know what? They take so much pride in that 25-year, that quarter century gift and plaque and recognize and having that end of the year event with their peers, that we can't overlook the importance of that. And that plaque that they put on the wall is just so important, and all I want to do is celebrate that. I don't want to diminish that in
Mm.
any way.
It's funny. I was going to ask you if you had any unpopular opinions that you would find that are maybe like dispelling myths or beliefs that people in your seat typically carry that you think are actually not beneficial, that they might want to shift their thinking on. I think you just explained one of them which is, are you going to be here for 10, 15 years of career? They're not going to hire folks in that case. And the way you just framed it creates this freedom to start with you and want to learn with you and work with you. That's a completely different shift. And I've actually never heard that. I always hear the opposite, that we're looking for people to stay here for that, 10-year plus situation. I like that. That's interesting. It makes
Well, I
sense.
I think that's where mission-based employment comes into play too, because I can look at a young man who I know will probably, start a family, within the next couple of years or what have you. And having that conversation is, I'm in a seat and my organization is mid-sized. So I know you. I'm sitting across the table from you. I'm going to help you figure out what you want to be when I don't want to say grow
When you
up,
grow up.
but
No, I know what you mean.
yeah, yeah, when you grow
Yeah.
up, like what
Yeah.
you might want to do 5 years from now, because as you learn the organization, you learn the industry, there are opportunities and experiences out there that you're not even aware that are out there yet. So it's my job in my seat to introduce you to those experiences and those opportunities, whether it be, volunteer or job shadowing or spend some time up, in another department, whether it be accounting or registrar or whatever that might look like in the organization, and then come back to me and tell me what you think.
That is amazing. That
And let me
feels
help you get
so good. Yeah, like
there.
I feel like, but you know what? That's consistent with your core values and how you started off our conversation with the RISE acronym. You care about the people first. You're very like people focused and positive outcomes for the humans that are interacting with your organization, whether it be the students or the faculty um, and employees. So that makes sense to me that you would start off saying, I care about you. And I care about showing you. It's almost like a mentor opportunity. That's a very attractive way to look at it. And I wish more folks would look at it that way. What's something that frustrates you about the space that you look at and go, oh, I wish folks would stop doing this in this kind of in the HR ecosystem that's holding it back from growth?
I was presented with an idea that I would like to adopt for Thomas More University. So I am involved and I connect and network with Connix Partners, which is a CHRO network of 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 mid-sized companies, and just exchanging ideas. And one idea that I took away recently that I brought back to the university, talking to the chief of staff, listen to this idea. What do you think if we do this? Because the performance management here at the university, it needs to evolve. One of the first pieces of feedback that I received when I took seat was, Jude, our performance evaluations don't mean anything. They're not
Hmm.
connected with in our organization. It's not connected with pay increases. They're not merit increases. If anything, we have equity increases on it, and that's another whole topic. Wage equity and being competitive on that end. But something that I was reflective of was, what can I do to help make the performance evaluations meaningful? Like something that people look forward to sitting down and having this one-on-one conversation once or twice a year with their immediate supervisor, one or two over manager. And the idea was, get this, drum roll, was to remove the numerical value from a performance evaluation and to ensure that the performance evaluation matches what's in the employee file. So instead
Hmm.
of a 1 to 5 scale, putting a manager in an awkward situation to tell a subordinate, you're not a 5 out of 5. That's hard. That's sometimes hard to do, to give that feedback. But so if you remove the numerical value, I can see the psychology behind it, that it's easier to have a true feedback session. This is what you do well. These are the opportunities for improvement. These are the metrics that I want that the organization needs you to focus on. But you know what? These are the challenges that we foresee in the future, and I look forward to working with you in the year to come.
Ooh.
If that matches, what's in the employee file or what have you in the metrics, I think that's going to make it more meaningful. What I learned and I think this might be indicative of all of higher education, there's no such thing as the bell curve. You have 20 people within your work group, and you have 20 of them that are 5 out of 5. And we all know that that's not necessarily realistic, that feedback is skewed. But then in my former employment, my experience, we had a bell curve that we had to work with. We might have 20 on our, um, within our department, but we knew that we had to get 60-70% as a 3. Well, that really doesn't make sense to try to fit people in a box, because it is tied with merit, and I only have so much money to spend. So Sally might be a 4.5 on a scale, but yet I gotta rate it down because I only have so much money in the budget to pay her as if she were a 3.2 or whatever that might sound like.
Mm,
So just taking the thought process from my previous experience, and the feedback that I received, where I'm in seat where everybody's a 5 out of 5. Um, I just like that idea, and I'm going to adopt it. I'm going to. And what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work, right? I'm a
yeah,
mid-sized organization. Jude, you threw the dart at the board, and you missed the bullseye. All right, then
yeah.
let's do something different next year. So that's another reason why I love doing what I'm doing, and where I'm doing it is because I have the freedom to try that out and see what the results are.
That makes so much sense to me. Even from a culture perspective and a relationship perspective, if I'm a manager and I have to do a performance review on my team, and instead of telling someone you're a 2 and you're a 4 and you're whatever it is, which doesn't make any sense, we just go right to the thing that matters, which is you are fantastic at this. We want to acknowledge you for these things, and here are the things where there's improvement, and here's some ideas on how I think we can get there. What do you think? And that is so meaningful, and it's empowering, as opposed to I leave the room going, oh man, I suck. I'm a number 3. It doesn't really mean anything. It just makes me feel bad. And
Right.
so I love that. I think that could be quite transformative. I'm curious to see how that turns out. I would imagine it's going to be positive. Time will
And
tell.
keep in mind too that this is separate from any kind of bonus structure, private
Sure.
sector, what have you. You're going to have your sales metrics and your engagement metrics and
Of
whatever
course.
other, your whatever other metrics are out there that you have to achieve for your particular business. So that aside, but in regards to performance, I think that we have the opportunity to be more motivational that way. Better
Yeah.
conversations.
Totally agree with that. What do you do about leveling up the skills of your team and making sure that everybody is up to date and current and learning and growing?
I appreciate that. Well, I have an advantage over other organizations, and then I do work for higher education. We have a particular benefit called tuition remission. So, for example, I have a brand new payroll benefits specialist, graduated from Thomas More University, was working in a different discipline, acknowledged it founds like I could see through professional development meetings that you do the disc and the MBTI and what have you, but it became to light where there might be a better fit. So I actually pulled somebody from the public safety department into my payroll and benefits specialist and say,
Nice.
give it a shot, see if you like this. Um, because the disc told me that she was green, right? She was very analytical, like to work in a safe spot, and I'm telling you, she's knocking it out of the ballpark. Um, and then cheering them on, Jude, I'm thinking about going back to school to get my master's degree. The answer is yes. What's the
Mm.
question? Let's get you into that program. And just at Thomas More University, we had just this past year in the 2025 graduating year, we had 5 staff members graduate with an advanced degree. And that's something that we celebrated in our employment newsletter and what have you. So something to
Amazing.
be very proud of to upskill. But regarding like private sector, or what do you have the opportunity to do is to help support um, those within the discipline with their certifications. Now, different disciplines are going to have different certifications. I can speak to SHRM and the SCP and the CP. And in my prior organization, I led a group in 2024 through within internal professional development to achieve their SHRM CP or SCP for the first time. The organization made the investment not only for me to become a certified trainer and teach the course, but paid for the individuals that had an interest, the materials, the training, and the cost to take the test. I was quite proud of that Atrium Hospitality did that. It just upskilled HR
Yeah.
and gave us a stronger voice within the organization. But that's just two examples.
No, that's great. It's
Personally,
what's that?
just two examples that I experienced personally.
Yeah, I mean those are very relevant to what I was curious about. Because I think sometimes like you might have, maybe there's a lady in IT. She's fantastic at solving issues related to IT, but there's always misunderstandings when it comes to communication. For whatever reason, she just can't communicate well with her team. And so I wonder if those opportunities, you also look for ways to help them level up and skill up in those types of areas, not specifically related to their actual job duties, but just how they level up maybe personally. Do you guys look for that and provide that opportunity?
I would say that might be an opportunity that Thomas More University has, and something that we're exploring. Um, I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I do know that through the innovation of my HCM that we are looking to adopt, not only compliance training, but those types of behavioral training. I don't have anything in place currently.
Would that be useful? You think that'd be useful for an organization to consider that type of skill leveling?
Absolutely. If you had a library that you could offer or after these performance evaluations to say, hey, you need to learn how to give feedback, or this might be a topic that, communication or how to, resolve conflict, bringing a conversation down. I wish I had a library that, I could prescribe, or as we deal with different behavioral issues if they exist.
Yeah, I figured that would be helpful for folks. Jude, I really enjoy our conversation. I have so many more questions. I would love to have you back in the future, especially after you implement some of these changes you were talking about. I'd love to see how it went and get some updates on TMU. Where can people connect with the work that you're doing at Thomas University? How can they learn more about the university? What's the best place for them to go?
Excellent. First stop would be thomasmoreuniversity.edu. Second stop, I'd say check out our Facebook page. We have a communications team that keeps pictures and activities ongoing, and there's a lot of conversation that happens on the social media site. Our communications team does such a great job. But yeah, we'd love to hear not only regarding prospective, faculty or staff, but also from students. It's a community. It's not just, a single organization or a single group. There's so much collaboration.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hope we can do this again in the future.
I do too, Dion. I hope so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a huge favor and subscribe. Leave some comments below or some feedback so that I can continue to improve and deliver better content to you guys. I want to provide as much value as I can, but I need to know how it's working or what's not working. So I'd really appreciate that. And if you have an idea for a show or you have a guest you'd love to see, pop them in the comments. I'll do my best to make it happen. I will see you next week. In the meantime, don't get stagnant. Keep shifting.